everyone. Karen Glasser here, and welcome to the show. Do you know how to have unstoppable grip? Let me say that again, because that was a tongue twister. Do you know how to have unstoppable grit? Do you even know what that means? Can you even say that 10 times fast? I don't know, but today we are talking about that and more with transformational speaker and career consultant Danielle Cobo. Welcome to the show. Boy, that's a
Hello.
tongue twister.
It is a tongue twister.
I finally got it out. Welcome, Danielle. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm really excited that you're here because we're talking about your new book that just launched and some great news. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's talk about your journey. How did you get here? You're a former Fortune 500 senior sales manager. You are an acclaimed speaker, best-selling author, and podcast host. What don't you do? Tell us how you got to where you are today.
Well, I started my career in medical sales. So I spent 15 years in medical device sales and capital equipment sales before leaving the corporate world and then becoming a speaker and an author and a whole lot of hats that I wear that I did not anticipate I would be wearing one day. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, would I be here today? I would have said absolutely not.
How fun is that though? Because literally, whatever you put your mind to, you're doing. And that is a great example for all of us. So, we're going to jump into the book because I'm really excited. This book is called Unstoppable. Unstoppable. What is wrong with me? Grit. What does that mean?
Unstoppable grit is so Angela Duckworth does a definition of grit, which is passion and perseverance towards long term goals. And I believe that grit is when passion and perseverance to a long term goal. And when setbacks occur, it's the action to take a step forward and continuing to move forward. But in order to have grit, I believe it's important that we have clarity on what our passions are. Without clarity, it's really hard to have grit.
Now, you say in the book that there are 7 roadblocks that are standing
Mhm.
between you and achieving your goals. Tell us one. What would be one roadblock?
One of the roadblocks is the apprehension of others' opinions. So often there's maybe a risk that we want to take in life. Maybe it's starting a business, maybe it's going for a promotion, maybe it's uh, whatever personal goal that we might have. But we start to hesitate because we start to worry about what other people's opinions are versus really looking in and what's going to be fulfilling to us. And so apprehension of others' opinions is one of the roadblocks.
So, what do you suggest to people? Because if we all have that, is there a tip that you can give us that will at least alleviate a little bit of that?
What I've learned in life is there's always going to be other people's opinions. But if you live your life based off of other people's opinions, you're never going to live the life that you truly desire and truly want. And there's going to be people that are going to judge you, and a lot of times that judgment comes from their own insecurities inside. So don't let other people's insecurities hold you back from pursuing the goals that you want in your life.
So, how would you define the word goals? Because I know that a lot of us say, well, I don't have goals because I don't ever achieve them. At the beginning of the year, I have my goals, and then 3 days later, I forgot what they are. How would you define a goal, and how do people actually stay on track for those things?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, one of the reasons why I had the book launch now, specifically this week, is because research shows by the second week of February, 87% of the people give up on their New Year's resolutions. And it's because people set out and they have these goals, but then they give up on them. So, how do we break free from that?
Right.
Yeah. So one of the ways that I look at what are my goals, every single year I create a vision board. And it's an exercise that I have done for 20 plus years. My kids are 6 years old. They are now starting to do it as well.
Wow.
And I believe that when you are intentional about writing down your goals and actually putting in and writing down what steps you're going to take to achieve your goals, that is going to help you achieve your goals. But there's a researcher, a psychologist, Dr. Frank Niles, and he says that it's not a matter of just manifesting your goals by having a vision board. When you have something that is in front of you, a visual representation, it creates top of mind awareness
Mhm.
that is going to remind you every single day of what you're working towards. So, those moments when you're feeling deflated and overwhelmed, or you're feeling like, I don't know if I can do this, having that visual representation of not only what your goal is, but a visual representation of also what are you going to reward yourself when you achieve that goal
Ah.
is going to help create top mind awareness. So my vision board sits above my desk. I can look at it right now. It sits above my desk every day.
Well, you know what, Danielle? My vision board actually lives on my desktop computer.
Mm.
I actually uploaded, so I look at mine every single day as well. And I call my goals intentions. I guess
Mhm.
I don't want to like get too I'm going to have a goal. It's an intention, and I do the same thing as you do. I have those steps that get us to the intention. If you are tuning in right now, we are talking to Danielle Cobo. We're talking about her new book, Unstoppable Grit. I said it right. Break through the 7 roadblocks standing between you and achieving your goals. If you have a question or a comment and you want to chat with Danielle, make sure you put it in the comments and we will put it up on the screen. Now, you say that it's not just about reaching your goals, it's about who you become
Mhm.
in that process. So, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I went through a series of life altering events in 2020. So in 2019, my husband had served a year deployment in Iraq. At the time, my kids were between the ages of 1.5 and 2.5 years old. So January 26th, he comes back from deployment. And it was a lot harder than what we had anticipated. He was a different person coming back from war. I
Oh,
was a different person. I was used to making the sole decisions of all the parenting, and now I've got to have discussions on our parenting styles. And when he left, they were drinking out of bottles, they were learning to walk, they were saying their first words. He comes back and they're formulating complete sentences, they're talking back and throwing temper tantrums. So it was a big shift for us. And right when we started to find our rhythm, March 8th, I lost my mom. My mom had actually passed, and she passed away from suicide. So
oh,
she,
Danielle.
yeah, I was absolutely devastated when I found out the news, and mainly because I couldn't believe that she was in so much pain that she felt that the only decision to relieve that pain was to take her life. And it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I say her life was taken from her because I do believe it's related to mental health. It is not, she didn't commit suicide. She was taken by suicide. And so right after that, March 13th, global pandemic shuts the world down. The uncertainty of what is life going to look like? How long is this going to last? What is this virus? And then the company that I was with was acquired by another organization, and I found myself in a very toxic work environment. And so these series of life altering events within a 6-month period completely shifted the way that I looked at my life and how I wanted to show up in life, and also who I wanted to be. I had tied my identity to my paycheck, to my job title, to my sales awards, but I wasn't necessarily happy. And it wasn't until I was writing my mom's obituary when I started to think about, what would it be like if somebody was writing my obituary?
Wow.
What do I want to be known for? And so, one of the exercises I typically will take people through when they're trying to get clarity on what they want their life to look like is, I call it the legacy exercise, where you write your own obituary from the perspective of a colleague and from the perspective of a family member. And you write down, what do you want people to say about you when it's time for you to pass?
Well, Danielle, you already know I was going to ask you this question, and that was, how do you want to be remembered? I had no idea that you were going to say what you said. So I'm going to jump ahead to that for a minute and we'll go backwards. So I'm sure you did the exercise yourself.
Absolutely.
How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for making a positive impact in the world. So, one of my greatest, what is the most fulfilling to me is when I am with somebody and I start to hear them talk about themselves. And it's like the limiting beliefs that they've had,
Mm.
and being able to provide them with the tools to break through those limiting beliefs and see them pursue goals that they may not have thought about, or they've been too scared to, or they've been apprehended of pursuing, and to see them do it and accomplishment, that to me is very fulfilling. So I would just want to make a positive impact in this world and feel like I'm making a transformation in people's lives.
And I'm sure that's exactly why you do this. You want to break through those roadblocks, and you want to make sure that they can achieve their goals, at least put them on the road to achieving their goals. I'm
Mhm.
going to put up some very impressive stats. The book is live, right? They can go over to Amazon, and
Yes.
I will in a second put up that QR code, but it's a bestseller in women in business. It's a bestseller in job hunting. It's in the new release number 4 in women in business, number 3 in job hunting, number 44 in motivational self help. First of all, let's just applaud. Yay, you. That is so awesome. How does it feel to be a best selling author?
I it's still sinking in. It is still sinking in. I had it's so rewarding to see that, putting a year and a half into writing this book. But what's the most rewarding, I mean, it's nice to see bestseller. What is the most rewarding is when I'm receiving the text messages, and the word that I consistently hear from people that have had the opportunity to read the book already is this book is transformative.
Wow. So that was your purpose,
Mhm.
and it has been received.
Mhm.
Very, very cool. So we're talking about your book right now, and I want to let people know that they can pick it up right now. There's a QR code. If you've never done this before and you're looking at a desktop or a laptop, get your phone out, turn the camera on, and scan this. It will take you right there. If you are not on your desktop, but you are on just your phone, don't worry about it. Just when you get off the show, you can screenshot it and you'll be able to go right over to Amazon, because that's where it lives. It's on Amazon, it's Barnes and Noble, it's everywhere, right?
Mhm.
It's everywhere. So I'm going to give everyone a call to action right now, because we would love for you to go check out the book, pick up a copy of it, and don't forget to leave Danielle a review on Amazon. It helps get her to the number 1 bestseller that she is. Okay, so where have you been, or where do you want to go, that inspires you or motivates you at this time in your life?
Mm. I believe I said when I was writing the book that I would never write another book, but because it was such a long process. I mean, I would wake up before my kids would get up in the morning. It'd be dark outside. There was times where there was a category 4 hurricane headed towards us, and I had my computer hooked up to a generator, and I
Oh,
was writing this book, and I told myself I would never write another book. And sure enough, I have carved out time to write another book. So I
well,
am excited for the next journey.
congrats on that. No, you said that you pivoted. You went from being in corporate world, doing all the things that you do, and then life changed for you, and it no
Mhm.
longer was satisfying. What was that pivot like? I mean, I can only imagine going from corporate, wearing the nice clothes, right? Doing
Mhm.
everything that you're supposed to do, and then moving into what I would you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business owner, you're a solopreneur. What was that like, the pivot, going from working for somebody else to working for yourself?
Terrifying. And still is, and still is. I was thinking about this the other day. I had been in my career for 15 years. I had been a manager for 7 years. So I had reached a point in my career where it was kind of starting to feel like second nature. I knew what to expect. Challenges that were coming my way, I had dealt with them before. I knew how to respond to it. But as an entrepreneur, it's almost like you're starting all over again. You're
Yeah.
taking all the knowledge from your years of working in corporate and my experience of helping other businesses grow their businesses and be successful. But doing it for yourself is very different. I went from, let's really paint the picture of what corporate life was like. I had a company car, I had stock options, I had a 6-figure salary, I had commission,
Right.
I had health benefits. And now all of a sudden, I'm starting from me. I am responsible for generating everything for me, myself, my family.
Right.
And it's terrifying. It absolutely is. And every time I think back to, oh, it would be so nice to go back to corporate and kind of have that security and that cushion. And I always ask myself, but would I be fulfilled in the same way that
Right.
I am today? And I just don't know at this point because my job is so fulfilling at this
Yeah.
point.
If you're tuning in right now, we're talking about facing the fear and doing it anyways, leaving, and in your case, Danielle left corporate life and became an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, you work for yourself, let us know how you're doing this. Is this fearful for you? Have you ever been in corporate life before and now you're by on purpose, or maybe not on purpose, now an entrepreneur? I used to laugh that entrepreneurs are not always entrepreneurs on purpose.
No.
They sort of landed there, right? And it's hard. So if it's hard for you, let us know what you're doing. What would you tell somebody right now who's watching this show, whether it's replay live, whenever you're watching this, what would you tell them right now to get off the dime and start following their dream?
When you believe in yourself, other people will believe in you too. And I believe that in those situations where you're wondering whether or not to pursue that business, pursue that promotion, pursue whatever goal that you're trying to achieve, you never want to look back and wonder, what if? You never want to do that. So at least try before you even give up on yourself.
Good answer. Um, I'm sure our viewers are wondering, how do they follow you? So we're going to give them some information. You can watch us again and again and again. You don't have to write it down, but if you want to, you can go visit Danielle at her website at daniellecobo.com. You can visit Danielle on LinkedIn at Danielle Cobo. You can go to her YouTube channel, to the Unstoppable Grit podcast. And I want to talk about the podcast before we get off. You can also visit you on Instagram and Facebook at the Danielle Cobo, and also on TikTok and Twitter without the Danielle Cobo. As I like to say, you are everywhere. Now, we didn't talk
I
about your
am.
podcast, but let's talk a little bit about the podcast. Is the podcast an extension of the book? Did the podcast come first and then the book, or did the book come first and then the podcast?
Podcast came first. So it started off as Dream Job with Danielle Cobo podcast. And then when I released the book, I rebranded the podcast to Unstoppable Grit podcast, because it's all about how could you thrive in all areas of your life? How could you build a career in life that you love? And that's where that Unstoppable Grit comes from. And so the podcast has 158 episodes. It's rated the top 5% globally.
Wow.
And I've had amazing guests on the podcast, and so I had that before writing the book. But the podcast inspired the book.
Okay, so they can find that everywhere that podcasts can be
Mhm.
listened to, Spotify, Apple, you name it. Just go put that into the search, Unstoppable Grit podcast. It will show up. Any last minute thoughts for our audience that you would like to share?
I would say if you're thinking about it, do it. Don't let anything stop you. Believe in yourself. Try it. You never want to live your life regretting and wondering what if, because if you pursue your goal and maybe it doesn't work out, at least you'll know that you tried before you even gave up on yourself. So do it.
Just do it, as Nike says.
Yes.
Not to steal it or anything, but just do it. Danielle, thank you for taking time out of your very busy week, because you're launching this week, and I know it's very, very exciting. I want to thank you, and I want to thank our viewers. You have a choice as to where you spend your time. You chose to spend it with Danielle and I today, and we are thankful for that. Go out, give somebody an awesome day, and we'll see you next time on Karen Glasser Live. Goodbye, everyone.